if you can't get labor that's going to help you grow your business, maybe we can help you source labor. And so Path to Pro is one of those avenues that we're doing just that. So to start off with, can we create a virtual boot camp, if you will, that'll give folks kind of the start.
Welcome to the Fine Homebuilding Pro Talk Podcast, a regular discussion with building industry professionals. This is Senior Editor Patrick McComb. Today I'm joined by J.T. Rieves, Vice President of Pro Business at the Home Depot. You can find the Fine Homebuilding Pro Talk Podcast and the original Fine Homebuilding Podcast at finehomebuilding.com/podcast. You can leave feedback and ask questions there too. Hi, JT. Thanks very much for being on the show.
Thanks, sir. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
I got to admit, I'm a little nervous about this because it's not every day I interview an executive from a Fortune 18 company I checked this morning. Thank you very much for your time. It's a pleasure to talk to you.
Not at all, sir. Believe me, I'm looking forward to it as well. So,
can you please tell me what you do specifically for the Home Depot for our listeners?
Absolutely. So from a pro standpoint, people often say, what's pro? If you think about folks that do work in your house, they are the customers for the pro organization. So think about contractors, and that can be really broad. It could be government entities. It could be someone that's cleaning homes. It could be people that do building for a living and kind of anything in between. But that is our core customer from a pro perspective. And our business has gotten so big, we've split it a little bit. So I have the pro business inside of our stores, our 2,000 almost U.S. stores. And a couple other things. We've got a call center that does some things to support our pros, help expedite orders.
Can I ask you what are the departments in the store that fall under your umbrella?
Well, officially, it's what we call the pro department. And so if you're in a regular Home Depot store, somewhere across the front, in most stores, there's a few little wrinkles where it's in another location. We have a pro desk. So that pro desk, those folks and I are together. And then I would say we also have kind of a indirect influence over so much of the rest of the business because many of our pros don't use the pro desk or aren't aware of the pro desk. So in many cases, we also try to influence folks in the aisle, although they don't directly work for me.
So can I assume those are like things that are sold in greater quantities and stuff that like your weekend customer is less likely to buy?
Yeah, it's actually a way that I identify customers all the time. I was in a store recently and a guy had 10 garbage disposals on his cart, and you can, most of us, which is kind of the way the conversation can start, most of us don't buy 10 garbage disposals. So you can immediately have a conversation and say, I'm assuming you're doing this for a living. And then let's talk about what we can do for you.
So have you been with the company a long time and what did you start out doing there?
Yeah, believe it or not, about a week ago was 33 years for me.
Wow.
I started as an hourly associate in hardware in 1988.
You're kidding me. What were you doing there?
It used to be like you'd be really excited. Nowadays, people go, wow, you've been there longer than I've been alive. So I was talking to our summer interns recently. But yes, 33 years, started as an hourly associate in hardware. I was a department manager, assistant store manager, district manager, in a couple different places in the U.S., went to our corporate office as a rotation, did operations, did a stint as a communications person to try to create some things to allow us to communicate better to 2,000 stores. You can imagine how complicated that can be.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
I got promoted to regional vice president. I went out and ran stores in 2 different locations in the U.S., so 100 and so stores in the Carolina area, and then 100 or so where I'm sitting in Atlanta. And then about 10 years ago, they asked me to come do this job. And so I've been doing that one now for almost 10 years. But it's been a long and pretty amazing ride.
Is your story exceptional, or is the career trajectory for Home Depot executives similar to yours oftentimes?
What's so cool about our culture is that when I think about our EVP of stores, so Anne-Marie Campbell, who's been with us 35 years, she's just another, and we have lots of them. I think 90% of the leaders in our company started as hourly associates on the sales floor. Wow. But Anne-Marie was a cashier. 35 years later, she's responsible for all Home Depot stores in North America and then some other things. And so, yeah, it's one of the really cool things about our culture. And I would say that hasn't changed today, whether you started 33 years ago like me or whether you started last week. The opportunity to work up through the company is as good as it's ever been from that perspective.
That's pretty cool. I've heard building professionals say that the Home Depot and other home centers is not where pros should be doing their shopping. Why do you think this perception exists?
So I'll start with years ago. when I was a store manager, I always tell new store managers now when I get to talk to them, if I knew then what I know now about how important the pro customer is, I would have done things very differently. But we had a very kind of narrow view. I saw you on a regular basis, and I knew you were important in my store because you were here. But I don't know that we ever were aware from a data perspective of how big a pro customer, how important you were. So fast forward a few years later, call it about 10 years or so ago, we started to have enough information about our pros to really understand how important you are. And I think at that point, anytime you realize how important someone is, you try to differentiate the experience for them. And that's the path that we've been on for quite some time. When I think about where we have gone, whether it is our loyalty experiences, whether it is our digital experiences, well, I think about delivery or in-stock or merchandising, all of those, we have lots and lots of folks that wake up every day now motivated to try to make things different for the pro, not for the customer. And so look, both customers are super important, but the pro customer is a very, very different customer for our business. And I think once you realize that, it's the message I have to new store managers. Do you understand that a small percent of your customers do almost half of your business? You've got to treat them differently. And then, oh, by the way, here at the office, we're working on a ton of things that hopefully make it even easier for you to talk about that with many of the things that I just mentioned.
When you meet folks who say they'd rather shop at their local supply house or lumber yard, what would be your elevator speech to get them to change their mind and give your store a try?
So usually I have two conversations I would have. First of all, is there anything that they do that is a pain point for you? And then number two, what is it that you love most about them? And I think both of those two questions give me an opportunity to demonstrate solutions that we now have in place that maybe they weren't aware of. So whether those are the product assortment, whether those are our ability to pick and pull your order before you come to the store, whether those are our loyalty program that rewards you for your spend, our ability to get you better pricing when you buy in large quantities, all of those things. So if you say, well, I go there because of price, I think I have something for that. If you go there because of assortment, I think I have something for that. And in a lot of cases, it's an awareness opportunity for us. So, but those would be my two most common things. What do you love about them that perhaps I could talk about? Because if you have to go there and here, I believe I can make your life easier just because we can do those things just here now, which I think makes your day more efficient.
On the subject, I think a lot of the folks who shop at their local places would tell you that it takes them less time. It's either closer or they don't have to navigate a busy parking lot or folks pushing shopping carts of potting soil or what have you. Has the initiative to get people to buy stuff online and then pick it up, are a lot of people taking advantage of that? That would seem to help that situation to me.
Yes, sir. Very much so. And look, before COVID, we had, I remember talking into our pros in town halls, and at times they would be a testament to other pros. They would say, if you guys aren't ordering on the HomeDepot.com app and having them pull your order, and then why would you go do it yourself? Kind of a deal. So I think that was the beginning of that. But in COVID, as you know, the stores were never busier, especially in the beginning. Homeowners, were doing projects,
insane,
all that
man.
stuff. It was looking super difficult. And so because my customers, were experiencing some of that stress and strain, online became an outlet that I think has now stuck. It's one of our fastest growing businesses. And we're really excited about pros that are leveraging digital capabilities that I think, to your point, add a ton of efficiency to their business.
So how long do you try to get that? How long does it take to get that stuff turned around? And I'm sure it varies a bit, but can you pick it up the same day?
Oh yeah. In most cases, it's within a couple hours. Now, if you order a deck package, there's going to be varying degrees of stuff, but I'm pleasantly surprised in most cases, unless it's a significantly large order, that you can do it almost routinely in under an hour. And so, I would challenge you, if you haven't, as a customer, take advantage of it, whether you want to do a pickup or whether you just want to walk inside and grab it. I did it recently. My son needed help at his house, and I ordered some big black pipe for drainage, ordered it in the middle of the day or whatever. And then they pinged me a few hours later and said it was ready. And then it wasn't until later that day that I could go by there. I swung by there, grabbed a cart full of stuff at the service desk and rolled it out, put it in the car, and away I went. And so all of that was done for me versus me having to take more time to go do that myself.
How do you get your associates to pick good lumber and stuff? I mean, that would be, it takes some training, and sometimes you have to be a carpenter to know what.
Yeah, it's a super tough one, right? And I would tell you, when I was a store manager, we always got feedback on lumber. One of the reasons I get excited about our flatbed distribution centers is that we are now taking people that pick and pull orders for a living and do that. And so we know it's something we always have to get better at. And I think when you start in lumber, we teach you how to do a number of things. One of them is how to pick and pull quality lumber. We only try to buy number 2 or better stuff. So hopefully that takes some of that away. But as you know, every unit has some
Garbage.
some amount of defects.
Yeah.
But yeah, I promise you that we do not pick the curved lumber on purpose. It's definitely part of our conversations.
I've heard folks say that one of the reasons they like to shop at their local places is it's easy to get stuff delivered. You know, local pro-oriented yards have boom trucks and piggyback forklifts, which can get material closer to where you need it. Do you offer these types of delivery services to your professional customers? And like, what is your typical turnaround for, a sizable delivery?
Yeah, I would say it depends on where you are location wise, but I'm excited about what we've done with delivery. So I said earlier that we've tried to make a number of investments in the business, recognizing that pros need things differently. And so in almost all stores in the U.S. now, we've got a flatbed, I'm going to say 99+% of the time, the flatbed has a moffett or forklift hanging off the back. And that obviously, takes a ton of stress off of our pros. Then we have box trucks, we have a car service, and we have a van service. And I think all of those things give us the flexibility to put the right size product in the right asset, if you will, so that you can deliver it in a much more efficient and effective way. And then I think we've made a number of other enhancements. I talked about the FDCs, but if you can imagine a building.
Maybe we should tell folks what that is who aren't familiar with the term.
Yeah, I guess I got to be careful about our acronyms. So flatbed distribution centers. And so a flatbed distribution center allows us, if you think about the way I would say it to somebody, think about 2x4x8s. Maybe in a typical Home Depot store, we have 1,000, maybe 2,000 in some really busy stores based on customer demand. Flatbed distribution centers could have hundreds of thousands of those. And so, number one, the people that can pull those things, that's what they do for a living. They load the trucks in a more efficient way. The mix of the pallet and the order that we would assemble them is that way.
Yeah, so what you're alluding to for folks, there's a lot of folks who listen to this show, but what you're alluding to is when you go to a Proorder lumber yard, the person who picks your order knows how to arrange it, so you're taking off the top of the pile at all times. They put the stuff that you need first on the top of the pile, right?
You're exactly right? And so these guys do that really, really well. I also think it's two things that also make a significant difference in FDCs or flatbed distribution centers. The breadth of product, because stores were pretty confined. I mean, the Home Depot stores aren't getting any bigger. And so if you think about shingles or some of the other things, the ability to have an assortment that's wider than what you would normally be able to fit in the shingle aisle. And then depth. And how much, go back to my 2x4x8 example, how many 2x4x8s, if you needed a couple thousand, that may be something I would have to order a truckload, bring it in, and then deliver it to you. These folks have thousands in the building. And the goal ultimately is that we will be able to get to 90% of the United States of America same day or next day when we complete this rollout. And so that to me is a game changer for the business. It also takes that pressure off our stores who pick those orders today and then put them on a delivery truck. It also protects the inventory for our pros that walk into our stores. So if you got the really big order, that big deck package or whatever that we talk about, that can get picked and pulled over there. But if you have that emergency need, your hammer broke, you needed a fitting to finish a job or whatever, that inventory gets better protected because we're not picking that inventory for the big delivery. That delivery is coming from these other buildings. So it's one of the biggest, most exciting things, I would say, the investments that we're making that's going to change the game, I think, for our pro customers because of the ability to, again, depth and breadth, speed, quality of the pick, all of those things. Very, very excited about what those are going to bring to us.
I think you'd agree that one of the biggest challenges currently with the pro contractor or handy person or whatever have you is the labor shortage, this skilled trades gap. I've learned recently that your company is trying to do the right thing by training folks in good practice on all kinds of stuff. Can you talk a little bit about that with me, please?
Yeah, it's one of the things I'm really excited about. So you said it. When I do town hall meetings with our pro customers, it's one of the most common things. If I said, "Hey, how can I help you?" Usually I'll say, "How's the business? How far are you booked out?" And early in those conversations, one of my other questions is usually something like, "How is labor?" And then you get lots of frustration, like you said. I was talking to a pro in New Jersey last week, and he basically said, the reason my business isn't growing any more than it is right now is because I can't put more trucks on the road because I can't get enough folks. So it's one of the big ways I believe we're attempting to help our pro customers continue to grow their businesses. If you can't get labor that's going to help you grow your business, maybe we can help you source labor. And so Path to Pro is one of those avenues that we're doing just that. So to start off with, can we create a virtual boot camp, if you will, that'll give folks kind of the start, whether that's a career change or whatever. And in doing so, we'll get you some training, some knowledge, some skills. And then when you're done and you graduate from that camp, we're going to connect you, if you will, to some people that have said also online, I'm very much looking for more people that have these kind of skills. And it's a great head start to then get those folks connected. And then, to kind of go off and run it. So it's,
so what are you
really
teaching these folks to make them ready for the construction business?
Well, I mean, it's a number of things, but I mean, there are, believe it or not, there's also some, when you talk to our pros, it would be things like communication skills and things you would be surprised.
Sure.
But obviously there's safety stuff. And then there obviously is specific to a type of industry, how you do certain things. So, I would tell you, it is a great step in the right direction. For these folks, it's a great starter. You're certainly not walking out of there as a master plumber or electrician, if you will. But I do think that we are setting the stage and creating a connection, and then our pros could at least make that connection a little further, and then we'll let them, kind of take it from there.
How do folks find that stuff?
Atlanta recently.
How do folks find that stuff?
I'm glad you asked that. So there is a website. If you go to pathtopro.com, and then it's /free-training. If not, just go all the way down to the bottom of the page and you'll see a tab for free training. And then you can start. You got to be 18. It's, I think, about the only limitation, and then get going and then go find something that you're super interested in. I mean, you probably heard some of the stats. I think the average plumber now is in their late 50s. So there's tremendous opportunity for folks beyond that. And look, speaking of plumbers, I was talking to a local plumber recently, and I talked to him about Path to Pro, and he said, I'll take 12 plumbers right now. Now, they're not 12 plumbers ready to go, but that, to your point, that's how aggressive this guy's looking for talent and how excited he was about the opportunity to get connected to it. So,
well, I hope it works, man, because we need some help.
Very much so, yes. Look, I feel really, really good about it.
So I think one of the most valuable services offered by the Home Depot is the rental desk. I've used it a lot on my own projects. It has longer hours than a typical rental yard, which is typically Monday through Friday, maybe Saturday, part of the day. And you have a surprisingly deep inventory of things to rent, even trucks, which I've also taken advantage of. Can you please talk about what's available and how you decide what to have at those at a respective store in the rental department?
Yeah, first of all, pro customers are fantastic rental customers. And so it was a natural synergy, if you will, for us. I have a great relationship with the folks that run rental, and they would tell you when I do my meetings with customers and associates, they're a big part of the meeting because it's such an important part of our customer relationship. And you can imagine, especially today, there are lots of things that a pro may need, but they don't want to buy for good.
Or it's broken, right? Or it's broken and you need it while it's being fixed.
You're 100% right. I hear that a lot. And so, yeah, that's where the rental team can come in. They do a fantastic job of having the right stuff at the right time. You could rent it for some hours. You could rent it for a day. You could rent it for a week. You can go longer. I mean, all that's kind of up to you. And then the mix, you mentioned it, but the mix is dictated very much locally. If I go back to my store days, we very much work with that team, and they're better now even than back then, at making sure that the mix in your store is exactly what people want to rent in your store. Maybe it is oriented
How do they
towards
decide that? Is
concrete.
it feedback from customers or is it based on rental history? I mean, because you can't rent something that's never been there. So how would you know you're missing it?
It's very much based on, so some of it is that, or hey, we never have enough of X, so we can over index in that item. But the other one is exactly that. Customers saying, man, if you guys had aerators, and you don't, if you all had, whatever that mix is that our customers are giving us feedback, they've got full flexibility to do just that. And so, yeah, it's local is super important to us, right? We don't want to be cookie cutter, and tool rental does that really, really well. And then you mentioned it, trucks, vans, those kind of things that you can rent if you're moving, or if we've got pros that, need to move stuff that you do it all the time. And then we acquired a company a few years ago that gets us into the kind of big equipment space, right? So if you're doing dirt moving, aerial lifts, those kind of things, all of that stuff, it's not for everybody, but
Is that
again,
stuff
like
available
said,
at your typical Home Depot, or is that a special channel?
in through tool rental, through the rental centers, we've got those options. In many cases, they'll also bring it to you. So you could trailer it if we have it in that location. You could schedule it. In many locations, they'll bring it to you. So depends on where you are and and what those things are. But it's super flexible, and I think it gives you the option of exploring a ton of things that perhaps you weren't considering from us.
There are probably a dozen Home Depot stores within an easy drive of my house. And there's a lot of inventory. There's the same, but there's some I have to drive to get special things. How do you decide, like, within 30 miles of my house, what a store is stocking or not? I mean, it seems like it's not that different, right?
Sometimes you'd be amazed. Well, first of all, we give our merchants the flexibility to do just that, right? It's actually a position that, if I go back to my days as an RVP, I had three
You'll
of
have
those
to tell
folks.
us what that is again.
So those merchants were designed to help us. So it's a regional merchandising manager, and that's exactly what you would think. I have somebody that is localized to the area so that we can make sure that whatever is in those stores is very specific, a match to that community. And I'll give you an example. You talked about 30 miles. The store that I shop is a heavy gas grill store, not a heavy charcoal store. If I took you 5 miles down the road, it's a complete flip because of the customer base in that store and in that neighborhood. They're massive charcoal grillers, and so we have almost no gas, but a lot of charcoal. So that's not a great pro example, but that's exactly the flexibility that we have. So you could think of the same thing with electrical code, right? So I know if I talk to one of our fantastic merchants, he would say that code dictates what the mix is. And so you could go from, like you said, this store to that store, and that's different code. And so it's a huge effort, but it's all about putting the right product in the right place so that that you get exactly what it is that you need. Now, that could be frustrating, I guess, sometimes too, because like you said, if you really wanted a big charcoal grill, I might have to send you to that other store because this store may not be big into it. But it was with the best of intentions to match the inventory up to exactly what the customers are telling us that they want.
This is a question I've been waiting to ask an executive at the Home Depot for nearly my entire career. One of the things I've heard over and over again in the 20 plus years I've been doing this is that home centers like the Home Depot stock slightly different versions of products than tool dealers, lumber yards, and supply houses. These people generally say that the tools, building products, plumbing, and electrical supplies are often inferior compared to the building products and tools sold elsewhere. Is that true?
Let me say it this way. So I won't say no because I don't want to come across this way. But we've got the best merchants on the planet, and I can promise you that they don't come to work every day trying to do anything other than have the absolute best product that we can have. And that is that's based on defective rates. It's based on how we align with what our competitors are building, and they do not make decisions based on trying to have a lower quality, et cetera. So yes, it is super important to us. It's not the way that we do business. It's also super frustrating for a lot of us. And so I'll give you an example. We have in the basement of our parking garage at the office a testing lab. And all we do is buy our stuff and everybody else's stuff. And I walked in one day and it was compressors. everybody's compressors plugged in and they're all running. And one of those tests was just how long do they run before they give out? And how does ours compare to somebody else's? Life-proof vinyl flooring. Vinyl plank has become one of the hottest categories. It wasn't even a category a few years ago. And, I think it's now something in the billions of dollars.
We should tell folks who aren't familiar with the terminology, but this is a luxury vinyl floor, right? They're clicked together pieces, and the big plus is it's super tough. I think you'd agree.
Super tough, almost bulletproof and waterproof and all that stuff. And so we go out and we buy our stuff and everybody else's stuff from major competitors. And I can say that our LifeProof, which is our brand, is better than abrasion. It's better in scratch. It's better in dent. And that's tested than anybody else's stuff. And so it was never about compromise. It was about how do you lead the industry in a category? And so no compromise, right? So we've got brands that you can't get anywhere else on purpose to try to dictate to the pros, whether it's Milwaukee or Rigid or Carlon or Klein, all of that. We just signed a deal with LP Building Products. And again, all of that is to try to demonstrate to our pros more and more that we want to have the right product with the right quality, not interested in compromising in any way, all about the absolute best value. And so I know our merchants get super frustrated because of that kind of urban legend. But
how do you think we can dispel that myth? I mean, like I hear it a lot, right?
They work super hard. I would tell you, the first thing you got to do is you got to get your associates excited about it. And I think we do that a lot, right? We do great demos and great side-by-sides. There's a number of other ways that we're looking at it, but it really is, in the world of today with YouTube and all of these other things, to be able to compare to everybody else's stuff. It would do us no good to ever have somebody go and say that don't buy this, buy that. And so our merchants want to lead from the front and aren't interested in compromising. But I would say it's a huge challenge. It's one of our biggest frustrations because I've been here a long time, and I would tell you our stuff is absolutely fantastic. It's all built with our pro customers in mind. More than ever, I think our merchants reach out to us and our customers and say, what is it that the pro wants, so that we're not, just focused on one kind of group, if you will. So yeah, we got some work to do there, but I can assure you, I'm very, very pleased with what it is that we produce across every department in the company, specific to what everybody else sells in every category.
I've met several Home Depot associates who went from to work for the company after years or decades spent doing trade work. Do you recruit folks from the building industry to work in your stores?
Yeah, look, it's interesting. Oftentimes we might say, hey, Patrick, I know you're getting ready to retire or whatever. We'd love to have you, come work with us. We've got hundreds of master plumbers and hundreds of master electricians. It's how I learned, many of the areas of the store that I know was because I got to work side by side in the aisle with somebody that was one of those experts that made me a little bit dangerous in a good way. It's super important. I would also tell you it's super important at our pro desks. I need to have street credibility if I'm going to speak to you about a project, blueprints, whatever those things are.
When it's really frustrating when you try to explain like a window or door order to somebody and they have no idea what you're talking about. I think you'd agree that is, you're all of a sudden you're like, this is not the person for me.
It's a huge challenge. I would tell you, to get a window expert, for example, in 2,000 stores is a huge challenge. So we're trying some other things virtually where maybe can you centralize some of those things? I did it recently with something. I was super pleased with the knowledge of the individual that I worked with. But as you can imagine, in the world today with labor, you mentioned it earlier, having 2,000 stores that would have a millwork expert or multiple millwork experts. So we're continuing to have to get creative for ways to find that. But it is part of our culture that we want to have experts that not only can speak to our customers, but also can make guys like me that didn't know anything a little better in the aisle as well. So it's a super important part of what we did.
This is another favorite question. Can you tell me about your own house? Do you have any new or lingering problems that you're either happily or unhappily ignoring? Do you like to work on your house? Do you bring home stuff from the office to try out?
Less of that and more of, my wife would tell you, why the heck can't we just get someone to do that? And my deal is I'm a little frugal in that regard. So not a ton of exciting stuff lately. Like, it's a list that's constantly going that I work off of, but one that's probably not very pro-oriented, but was super important. I had a beaver problem in our neighborhood, and the beaver is chewing the trees down. So this was one of those like, hey, I got to get chicken wire around every tree we've got, because if you've ever had that issue, they go away. So not the most exciting one, but time is of the essence in that regard. I did a redeck recently. So I had some pressure treated lumber decking that had been exposed to the weather probably for 20 years that looked like it was, from Jurassic Park time. And so that was one of those where my wife liked the weather look better, but this was strip off the top, make sure all of the support lumber was in solid shape, make any adjustments, and then put new decking on top. She's not very excited about the look at this moment, but I'll tell you, it is way better. And so those would be a couple of the more recent ones.
You asked the wrong person, JT, who's what the decking should be, honestly.
Well, I really wanted to do something with composite. And I know our merchants talked about it. I can't get my wife to agree on a color, so this was the temporary.
It's been a pleasure talking to you, and I appreciate your honesty in the answers. Anything you want to ask or tell our listeners before we go?
Well, look, first of all, I would say thanks. Thanks for being great customers. Please know how hard we're working to truly create a differentiated experience. If our executive leadership team was here with me, they would tell you they wake up every day definitively focused on our pro customer as a really, really important segment. We're investing for them in ways that we like we've never done. And so I'm really, really excited about that. So I would say thanks to our customers, thanks to our associates, thanks to you guys for the time. But also know, you mentioned it, one of the ones that I'm super excited about is online and the whole digital world that we live in. We're building some things that I think could really make our pros' lives easier. So if we can't get you, more time, can I squeeze down some of the things that you're doing to get you a little more efficient or whatever, right? There's only so many hours in the day. So can I get you a little more efficient? Our pro online experience, like I mentioned, whether you want to order stuff, whether you want to authorize users, whether you want to pay with a virtual ID, there's so many things, earn perks and benefits. There's so many things that we now have, which are all this, compounding effect of what I think our company has done to really commit to the pro customer, that I'm really, really excited about it. So if I left you with one, I'm really excited about the new Pro Online experience. Go to homedepot.com. If you're not in our loyalty program with Pro Extra, get into one, log into that website, and as a Pro Extra loyalty pro customer, you're going to get a differentiated online experience, different than kind of a regular DIYer. And that would be one that we're really, really excited about, that we continue to say needs to be special for our pros.
That was great, man.
Thank you, sir.
Well, unfortunately, that is all the time we have for today. Thanks to JT for joining us, and thanks to all of you for listening. Please remember to send us your comments, questions, and suggestions to fhbpodcast@taunton.com. And please like, comment, or review us however you're listening. It helps other folks find our podcast. Stay safe, everybody. Keep craft alive. Happy building.